So if you've been watching the channel for a little while, you'll know I can't resist a band with a wacky name, and so when I stumbled upon the Squirrel Nut Zippers digging through some crates, I had to know what they were all about, and when I found out their sound was this subversive, southern, swinging, big band, jazzy fusion that was something all its own, I had to dive into it and get a little more research into what the heck this band is all about. And to simplify, I guess you could say they brought the sounds of the 20s and 30s into the 90s and modernized them with their own rootsy cabaret flair. Formed in 1993 by Jimbo Mathis and his then-wife Catherine Whalen alongside Ken Mosher, Chris Phillips, Tom Maxwell, Don Rayleigh, and Stacey Guess, who would fill out this band's rhythm and brass sections. Originally, the band name and the concept was just a fun idea dreamt up by Jimbo as just something interesting to try out, but it connected with a far larger audience than he originally expected. It became clear that the band had hit on a multi-generational sound, adding in violinist John Kay to the crew in 1995. They'd released their debut album through Mammoth Records. Produced by Brian Paulson, The Inevitable was released in May of that year, and by June of the following year, the success of that one had driven them to release their multi-platinum success. This is their second album, released in 1995 through Mammoth and produced by Paulson as well. This is Hot by the Squirrel Nut Zippers. Or so I thought when I bought it, and when I was listening to it I wasn't even careful enough to pay attention, but it's actually a copy of their debut, The Inevitable. Not hot at all. And if you can read, yeah, sure, you already know that's what I'm talking about, but hell if I care. This is how I found it, and it's probably the best case scenario for a secondhand switch up, getting at least the right band if you got the wrong album in there. Maybe it's for the best anyways, considering how much I do enjoy The Inevitable, maybe even more than Hot, and so let me just fix this for a second here, one moment. There, I guess that's gonna have to do for now. The Inevitable surprised me in more ways than just sneaking in a different case. Its style and sound are just so completely original. Their forming in North Carolina is not completely reflective of where their sonic core truly lies, and that's New Orleans. But as many comparisons as I try to make with their songs and their sound, it ultimately only comes down to me picking up little pieces of a much bigger picture. The band has truly been through it all since the release of this album, growing, maturing, refining their sound and their style, changing and going through everything you could imagine a band going through. And maybe as I grow and mature myself, I'll learn to love their newer releases, but for now I have just fallen for this playfully goofy beginnings and its revivalist atmosphere that this project provides. Like many other 20s and 30s counterparts, this track list has shorter, sweeter songs that stick between 2 and 3 minutes, but in this case, instead of remaining stylistically consistent, they kind of jump back and forth from songs that are almost too fast to traditionally swing to these bluesier, jazzier waltzes that kind of groove you around the dance floor in their own unique way. I'd like to now take a few minutes and try to break this album down to its parts and see what kind of picture I can put together from it. Starting out, getting an introduction to that contemporary, swinging, jazzy sound that the Squirrel Nut Zippers are known for with this first track, Lover's Lane. Like its title suggests, this upbeat, horn-driven love song is just simple, carefree, and energetic enough to get everyone up on their feet. Danny Diamond brings a slower, sultry jazz energy to the mix with a groove that is pretty slick. It struts around in an almost maniacal fashion that gets you moving in its own unique way. Next, there's a cover of a jazz standard that was written all the way back in 1926 titled I Found a New Baby, and it classically bops along. The Zippers do well to bring this 70-year-old song to the more digital era, and it may rub some older generations the wrong way, but I think it's a ton of fun, and if they're already here for the Squirrel Nuts, then they'll definitely survive this track. The introductory guitar melody on Anything But Love makes me think of Randy Newman, but instead of his soulful crooning, we get a softer, sweeter song. The title is clear, though. It's not about love, thematically kind of matched by a Fiona Apple song I quite enjoy, but ultimately, as much as I enjoy the themes here, this song lacks the punch that a lot of the other tracks on this album deliver. One of this album's shortest songs is probably my favorite. Good Enough for Granddad is a groovy little number reminding you to appreciate what you've got and the time you've been given. It's followed by the shortest and softest song, Wish for You, whose tempo actually makes it feel a little longer than Granddad's song, and Catherine Whalen's vocals are just subtly complemented by some really light instrumentation as she drifts longingly by here. La Grippe is the song that convinces me that there is no better time for me to have discovered this album. Just listen to these lyrics and tell me it's not Mathis predicting a pandemic. There's a flu bug getting passed around, and it's spreading like fire through the town. There's a virus holding up inside us. Everyone that I know is coming down. There's an Asian influenza infecting us all by the score, and it's turning into pneumonia. We must go out once more. It's pretty wild, and I find the other verse to be equally eerie. So the doctors came on the evening train with their flasks and their caskets and their vials. Mass psychosis was their diagnosis, so we all cashed our checks and went wild. I can even see a world where this song could be co-opted by the anti-vax movement with the chorus of "We must go out tonight," just that repeated, and it's just fascinating to discover a song that 25 years ago was written and now it's story kind of coming to fruition. I really couldn't believe it the first time I heard it. After that sort of left field encounter, you get an instrumental track titled Lugubrious Wing Wang, where the band takes turns trading leads, doing their own individual solos before you sway into club limbo. Waylon's voice tempts you in with hopes of leading you down the blissful path to Lover's Lane, but there's something about the tone of this song that makes it all kind of feel like a trap. Jimbo's vocals on Wash Jones remind me a lot of Tom Waits with a dark, gruff, cryptic, poetic delivery. It's definitely a highlight for me, but it's also certainly a strange song. Another old cover comes in before the closer here. This time it's from 1930 and has been covered by over 100 artists, from Billie Holiday to Louis Armstrong. This one's titled You're Driving Me Crazy, and the band takes a fairly light approach on this one once more. Catherine's vocals are always reminiscent of those vocalists of times past, and it just feels odd to be listening to this song on CD and not some old vinyl. The closing sentiment is one that moves beyond that honeymoon stage that a lot of corny love songs seem to sit in, and addresses the fact that it doesn't always work out, that some people aren't meant for each other and you have to move on and try to find a new person. But as Cher says, there is life after love, and there is always someone else there that you can find that will love you and spend time with you. It's a nice change of pace. It's kind of a lovely sentiment, sort of reassuring and sort of like things are gonna be okay. I'm pretty impressed by the range that these guys have achieved in just 33 minutes of runtime here on this CD. From classics to the more obscure, they've managed to retune and strike an old chord that was barely echoing in a new, fresh way, revivifying that swing and southern big band sound for the modern era. another album and band that exemplifies the creative abundance that the 90s fostered, and with the right people, weird, wonderful, out-of-the-box ideas can really work wonders. Like I mentioned, the band followed up this with Hot, and then in 1998 they released 2 albums, perennial favorites, and a Christmas album titled Christmas Caravan. While the band was kind of collapsing in on itself, in 2000 they released Bedlam Ballroom, and you wouldn't hear a whole lot from the Squirrel Nut Zippers throughout the aughts beyond a little bit of touring from Kim, Chris, and Jim. In 2016 though, the 20th anniversary of this album came up. Mathis got a new crew together and kind of restarted the Squirrel Nut Zippers with a brand new lineup. They've since released 2 new albums and seem like they're going to continue doing their thing post-COVID, and so if you're interested in throwing back to a throwback sound, maybe check out their latest and see for yourself. I honestly can recommend getting yourself tickets to anything you can go to at this point if you're as starved for live music as I am. I'd love to hear your memories or stories about these nuts down in the comments, or just let me know any tickets you've got for shows coming up you're looking forward to. If you're interested in a weekly dose of wacky nostalgia, the weird and wonderful world of thrift shop music, subscribe for more. Here's a couple examples of other albums I've reviewed you might enjoy. Check them out and make sure you leave a like if you made it this far in the video. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next week. If it's good enough for Brandy, it's good enough for me. The way it was, that's the way it's got to be.